Have you ever been stuck at your stove, your back door, maybe checking a curling iron, just like checking over and over and over, never really feeling like it's off or it's safe to leave, and just feeling kind of like you're trapped? I'm very familiar with this feeling, and a few years ago I was diagnosed with OCD after just feeling like this is really interfering with my life and my day-to-day activities. But I have a couple tips I thought maybe I'll share on here, where over the past maybe year or so, it kind of helped me get over this and get to the point where I don't feel like this OCD stuff interferes with my life really at all anymore. If I'm being honest, I still have a little bit of OCD tendencies, but I don't feel like it has like a negative impact on my life. But anyways, I was like, maybe I'll start sharing these tips, break it down into a couple things, and maybe it'll help somebody. One thing that has really helped me is kind of unwinding my OCD rituals and tendencies. And I'll explain what that means. So this is kind of specific to checking OCD, but I'm sure it applies to other forms as well. But if you're experiencing this, you kind of know that OCD doesn't really develop like overnight. You don't go from being completely normal one day to just having a completely messed up routine and this whole kind of ritual for like OCD tendencies. It's a very gradual process. And what I found is you're not going to really get better overnight either. So you kind of have to unwind it. So slowly take things away and slowly kind of break your rituals until you're kind of like almost out, like completely unwound back to being somewhat normal. I'll kind of talk about the stove as an example. Originally, I came to my stove, I'd look at all the little knobs, make sure it's off, and that'll be good. One day that really stopped providing any kind of like satisfaction. I didn't really feel like the stove was off. So then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna feel if there's heat above each burner. And then that provided a little bit of satisfaction for a while as well. And then eventually that stopped kind of being convincing that the stove was really off. So then I start checking this, maybe make sure it's completely lined up, checking each one. And that helps for a little bit. Then one day you maybe start smelling to see if you can smell any possible gas leaks in here. And then before you know it, you have a whole ritual and you're not really even checking the stove anymore. You're performing like an OCD ritual. So how you get out of this, in my experience, what has helped me is I tried completely just like cold turkey. Just like, I'm not gonna check anything. That didn't work out so well. But what worked for me was just taking one thing away every day. Or maybe one thing away every week or something. Just whatever you find is like sustainable for you. So first I'll be like, okay, I'm not gonna smell this anymore. I'm not gonna check for gas leaks. Then a couple days later, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna check the heat anymore. And then I'm not gonna do this little thing where I make sure each one is like upright anymore. And then eventually you get to the point where it's like you've kind of unwound, like I mentioned, the whole ritual, and you're kind of back to the point where you're just like a normal person. Maybe you're going to bed, you just quickly glance at the stove, it looks fine, and you go to bed. I say go to bed because I typically check this before going to bed, but for you, maybe it's before you leave the house or whatever. You just get to the point where you just look at it, it looks fine, and you continue on your day. And the thing is, this checking the stove, for example, might be part of like a bigger ritual you perform around your entire house. Maybe this is just one step. All these little steps that built up this little ritual is actually part of a giant ritual for checking your entire house before maybe you go to bed, like I said, or before you leave. Maybe that's part of, you do this, you check your doors, you check the water faucets, whatever else. So once you get this done, maybe eventually you just remove this entire thing from the ritual. You just think, I didn't use my stove today, why do I need to check it? Or I haven't cooked, I don't smell gas in the house. Or just subconsciously you don't even feel the need to check the stove at all because there's no need. You can just completely remove this from the ritual, and eventually you can kind of like that overall OCD ritual that you have in your life, you can kind of just start removing bigger items individually. So it's almost like a divide and conquer type thing. This is only like one tip out of like a handful that have kind of helped me get back to a state where I'm happy with how everything is and I feel like I have it under control. I don't know if this is helpful to anyone, but if it is, let me know. I hope it is. I hope I can help provide some relief to other people kind of dealing with this.